All right, guys, welcome to the Digital Barbell Podcast. We're glad you're here. We appreciate all of you that listen to us. We've got a special episode today. We got a guest in the house. We got Alex Maclin here. If you remember, he was on a previous episode, but he's live in the flesh today with Blakely and I. Thanks for being here, Alex.
Yo, yo, yo.
We just had an epic training session. I don't know if it was epic or not, but
it was epic.
It was epic. All right, good. But Alex, he's an accomplished Olympic weightlifter, so he was schooling Blakely and I on some techniques.
Little tips.
Yeah, it's helpful stuff, though, because we don't practice Olympic lifting a lot.
Yeah.
So, stuff slips through the cracks, and we get bad at stuff. So that was a lot of fun. I'm feeling it.
What did we work on with you? Like, it was just...
my main things are keeping the bar close.
Yeah.
Cleans, so you help with some drills with, keeping the bar close on the pull.
Yeah.
And then... for sure, my jerks are
staying in the midfoot. And
not
getting on the toes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
What was going on with you on your jerks?
I was putting too much pressure on the front foot in the split jerk landing. Needed to even it out my stance.
And then we did some deadlifts.
Some
and
presses.
Finished it up with some buys and tries.
That burnout was tough. I was dying. Like, I'm not even kidding.
We might feel that tomorrow.
Like, with the cables, with the crossover symmetry cables, I was like, this is tearing me up.
Our clients know all about that. Curls and some band curls. Woo.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't know if crossover symmetry intended all that equipment to be used for bicep curls, but we put it into use with them for sure.
That's so funny.
But we're going to get into a few different topics here today. We've got some ideas, some nutrition-related stuff, some mindset stuff, some training stuff. So I think it'll be pretty cool. I wanted to start off and talk about something that we run into a lot with clients, or just something that everybody kind of knows about but maybe doesn't really know about. Weight loss plateaus. You deal with that with any of your nutrition clients?
Oh, yeah.
So I think everybody has a slightly different definition of what a plateau is, but despite that, it's essentially where you have a goal to either gain or lose weight, and you're making progress towards that for a while, and then what you're doing stops working, right?
Well, quote, stops working.
Right. So let's talk about not only what it is, but what are some of the common reasons for it, and some of the first things to do if you think you have hit a weight loss plateau. What comes to mind when you think about clients where they think they've hit a plateau, or not even clients, just people in general who think that something stopped working?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, well, the way I try to also to reframe, I think it's important to reframe a plateau. Like, people think a plateau is a bad thing necessarily, and I think that a plateau is not necessarily a bad thing, because the thing is like, if let's just say you lost 20 pounds, right? And you are plateaued at this 20 pounds lighter than you were, and you wanted to get that way, but you're not going the opposite direction. You're staying where you are. That's also good, because one of the biggest issues with people, with fat loss or weight loss or anything like nutrition related, is that you do something and then they go right back. They sit in this constant yo-yo spiral where they'll just gain all the weight back or whatever, and then they'll be back at square one. So like, if you're able to lose, the body fat, if that's your goal, and you're able to keep it off, if you're in this plateau, that's also okay, because what it means is that whatever you're doing, your behavior set is allowing you to stay there. And that's important.
That's a great point. Like, kind of reframing that maintaining is a victory sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, just considering like most diets, people revert back to their old habits, or they gain the weight back because they just are not able to sustain it. And that's important to be able to sustain.
Yeah. We talked about this when we were training. It's a huge topic that, we could get as deep into that as we want, because it's really about behavior change and temporary versus sustainable.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you work with a client, or you're just talking to somebody and they're like, I didn't lose any weight this week. Mm-hmm. It's really just helping them reframe their mindset around the fact that when you have a goal to lose weight, you need to slowly detach your measure of your progress from what happens on a daily and a weekly basis and kind of zoom out over the long term.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, something I tell, like, again, I really try to, communicate to my clients is that, like, you got to be committed to the process, like, regardless of whether or not you see like continuous change or, linear change or whatever. Like, you have to continue to be committed to doing all the things really that led you up to the point of this so-called plateau, right? Like, a lot of times people will get to, like, where they say, well, I'm plateaued, and they'll stop doing what they did to get to this point. You cannot do that. You have to keep doing what you have been doing the whole time. And then you have to look at, okay, if you want to break through the plateau, whenever you get to a plateau, all that means is that something else needs to change. Like, it's the action needs to be brought up into another level, right? Like, so you may be eating to get you to lost like these 20 pounds, you made these changes and that was good for that. But now if you want to take it to the next level, you got to take something else to the next level,
Yeah. Get more specific, get more careful. And that's outside of even like the physiological stuff of changing your calories.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think that because of how hard this whole thing is, dieting and losing weight, our mind starts to use tricks to try to stop us from losing weight. And most times that's like old habits creeping in slowly. So maybe your weight loss plateau isn't actually a physiological thing at all.
Right.
It's just that slowly you let some of those habits creep back in. And like you said, you're no longer doing the behaviors that got you to the point that you are now.
Yeah.
So maybe the first step is just taking an honest look at your own behavior, doing a little self-audit. Am I licking the peanut butter off the knife?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did I stop, using my standing desk or walking the dog? Did I decrease my activity? And that takes some honesty.
And that's a really good point. And I think a lot of people, everybody struggles with this. They don't realize that, like, yeah, even things like that, they add up. Like, everything adds up. Like, your summation of your daily behaviors or whatever you do, like, the most consistently. And so, yeah, if you previously were, working at your standing desk and you stopped doing it for whatever reason, like, that's going, and you add enough things in there, and that's going to create now this, place where you are, where maybe you're not able to maintain what you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love, we're talking about stuff like using a standing desk. That's non-exercise stuff, and it doesn't require you to be any more detailed with your nutrition, and it certainly doesn't require you to eat less food.
Yeah.
So I love pulling on those levers with nutrition clients to see if we can start to move the needle. And when we do get to a place where maybe we think we're in a plateau.
Yeah.
Because who wants to think about eating less food right off the bat?
Yeah. Yeah. No, like, I think, like, whenever you're in a place where you're not making the progress that you want to make, rather than, I always think of everything in terms of, not always, but usually everything in terms of, like, low hanging fruit, big opportunities. Like, typically if I'm wanting to change something, then I'm going to look at, okay, what is, like, the small rocks? Like, what are things that are easy for me to do right now? Like, if I, especially just like auditing my life, it's like, oh yeah, like, I probably should be doing a little bit better here. Like, that's going to be easy. I can make a small change here, and it's not going to require a lot of energy or a lot of, like, mental energy or time or whatever. And that I can do that. But whereas, like, if I look at something else, like, where, oh, this is going to be really involved, this is multiple steps, like, I'm going to have to change a lot of things about what I'm doing, that's probably going to, I do need to change that. It is going to help move the needle a lot, but I'm going to have to build up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of these things come after you've started a process and you're in it for a little bit of time. Like you get in the groove and you're like doing all the steps when you start. And it makes me think also on the training side, like you're doing all the steps, you're doing the warm up, you're doing everything. And then we get going into something, whether it's our nutrition, whether it's our training, and we're like, oh, I don't really need to do the warm up. Like I'm good to just start my workout right there. But like if we start to miss all those steps, like you guys are talking about,
we get complacent.
we're missing some of that. We're missing some of the pieces as we get down the road.
Mm-hmm. And that's that's a big topic right there too. It's like and we were talking about this when we were training too, but when we start something new, like we think we're all fired up.
Yeah.
But are we really fired up? Are we just imagining the outcome we're going to get, or are we committed to sticking with all those things that we're going to have to do to get and keep the result?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's sometimes hard to think about too, because it's like, I mean, you have all these things that the outcome is probably what motivates you the most at the beginning, but always plateaus are always going to happen. Mm-hmm. Like you're always going to hit a point where you're not making as fast as progress as you want to or as you were before. So it can't be the outcome that ultimately motivates you. It has to be more so like whatever benefit is coming out of doing those things. And it takes some time to actually recognize that benefit. We were just talking about that. It's like like any skill, it's going to be challenging at first. It's going to be a lot of work, a lot of mental energy to put the time in to develop that skill, and you're not going to see the benefit of doing it until you've been doing it for a while. Mm-hmm. And you'll see benefit, first at fast, like you'll see a lot of it, but then you won't see as much. But it has to be more so. It's like, okay, this is actually something I enjoy doing, and it's really helping me and bringing value, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's almost like knowing up front that your motivation is going to wax and wane during the whole process, and being able to like switch back and forth between being motivated by the process and being motivated by the results, kind of in a relationship, because there's going to be times where the results aren't motivating. So you have to learn to enjoy the process, and then maybe your pants fit a little bit differently and you get a little bit of that reward from the results, and you kind of go back and forth between those things.
Yeah.
Would you say you're like, I don't know, like I feel like some people are really, they get that. It's like they're not motivated more so by the result, like the outcome. Like for me, like I guess it's just because I've been doing stuff like stuff like this. Like I know I'm not gonna see like the outcome all the time that I want. But if I really want to do this, I really want to learn this stuff, like I'm just going to have to keep showing up and have to kind of like remind myself of these things.
I think it's rare that somebody is in that place when they start.
Yeah, that's true.
And then that's something that as a coach, we like have to continually point out to them that these are victories and these are things to watch for and be excited about. Almost everybody who starts is just trained for who knows what reason, just because that's how we are, to just be chasing the carrot of a result. And I think that's a huge part of our job, is helping people reframe their mindset about what progress and success really is.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point too about like just us pointing out, and then really just people think they are in a plateau because they haven't seen the progress that they're focused on. And we get like tunnel vision a lot, like people want to, again, if they want to lose weight, it's like they're only focused on this weight loss stuff, but they're not looking at other aspects that have improved or they're making progress. And being able to point that out is like really important.
Yeah. One of the things I started doing, I don't remember how long ago, but the day before somebody's nutrition check-in, I put a question on their calendar to answer, like, what was the best part of your nutrition this week? The question isn't like, how excited are you about how much weight you lost this week? It's like, tell me something you did that you're proud of. So I kind of train people to start thinking like that slowly over time. So let's talk more specifically about what the heck a plateau even is. Like, I have a sort of flexible definition of plateau depending on the client, but when I feel pretty confident that they're doing everything right and, being honest with me, if I don't see any progress for, a month, 3-4 weeks, something like that. And when I say progress, I mean the scale hasn't changed, their waist measurement hasn't changed, they're not getting stronger, or their progress pictures don't look different, that's when I start to think like, okay, maybe there's something going on and we're hitting a physiological plateau. Do you have a similar or a working definition of when you're working with somebody and you're like, all right, we need to start to change something because we're kind of stuck?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it just depends on like what you're specifically trying to create, like measure, right? Like, if a person is wanting to see fat loss or weight loss and they're not seeing that maybe they were previously, and then things have, if you're tracking the metrics, like you'll see it, right? And I think it's people often don't want to track things. They don't want to look at the numbers. They don't want to keep score. But the thing is, like, that's what's going to help you see whether or not like you actually are making progress. Like, can't feel that. Like, you have to see it, right? So yeah, I mean, if you see it, it's not happening, then it just means, again, it's like, well, whatever we were doing, it was working, and it's still working. That's the other thing. It's still working, but we need to make it a higher level. We need to bring it up, Precision Nutrition has a really great infographic about this. It's called like the cost of getting lean. Have you seen that?
Yeah. Been a while though.
Yeah. It's fantastic because it shows like there's levels to this, right? Like, yeah, if you want to get from this place to this place, like A to B, you got to do probably these things, right? But if you want to go from B to C and then C to D, everything gets more. Like, you have to start doing either more or to a higher degree, and that's just what has to happen.
You have to be willing to sacrifice. Yeah.
The more substantial changes that you want to make, the more more work you're gonna have to put in, typically.
Yeah. It's true. Anything in life, really.
Yeah.
We did a photo shoot in 2019, and we both like dieted down pretty hard to get really lean and look really good for this photo shoot. And man, like towards the end of it, I was sacrificing like crazy, and I felt terrible. My sleep was all messed up. I was hungry constantly. I was obsessed about food. And now as I see other people who are as lean as I got at that time, I'm like, I don't want to sacrifice like that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a sustainable thing.
Yeah.
And I think too, like, people don't realize that, it's like the actions have to line up with the goal that you have. And if your actions are not sustainable, then you're going to get there, but you're not going to be able to sustain that. So, I think, again, it goes back to like, well, what is a plateau, and is it really a bad thing? Because it may not be a bad thing. It's maybe just be like, hey, like, this is where I can live and be, maybe I don't look like this guy over here or whatever, 10% body fat, like, but I'm pretty happy. I'm healthy. I can do this for the rest of my life. Maybe if I want to make, small changes over time, I can do that, and I can see where I can make improvements, but I do it on my own terms. Like, it's manageable for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great way to reframe just the idea of a plateau in general that I hadn't really thought about.
Yeah.
Maybe you're in that place for a reason.
Yeah.
Because you're at the level
where
you can sustain that lifestyle.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, we live in this like society and this culture and just like in social media where everything is like, gotta improve, gotta make progress. If you're not doing better, you're failing. And like complacency is BS, like whatever. It's like, but is it really though? Like, is it like, if you're happy and you're doing what you're doing, you made all these changes and you can recognize that, like, it's, maybe this may be unpopular opinion, but I think it's okay to be where you are and just be happy where you are. If that's where you are and you're cool with that,
Yeah. The comparison culture.
Yeah, and it's just like the hustle and grind and like, I mean, I used to be in on that too. It's like, but it's like you're gonna get burnt out. Like, you want to be doing this for the rest of your life rather than just a few years or months,
Yeah. Why is your goal your goal? Is it based on what you think you see somebody else living? Is it based on where you think you will be happy in the future?
Right.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that perception you have of somebody else's life isn't even reality. Maybe they're miserable.
That's a really good point. I mean, I personally know people who've, gotten to super high levels of where they are. And then, they have to give up so much. And I think, again, like people just see the end result. They don't see everything behind the scenes. And so you don't recognize that there's all this that goes behind it in order to get that. And you may not actually want to do those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime I think I see somebody doing something and they're really good at it, they make it look easy, but that's not easy for them. They got there because of all the hard work they put in, whether they're doing something athletic, whether they're singing, all of those things. It's like, it is hard to get to that place of excellence. And you see it and you're like, oh, it's just natural for them. It's not natural for them. They are putting in some hours behind that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's important to them. Like
Yeah.
it's I think it's like meeting yourself where you are. Like, this person, that's just maybe their life, but maybe that's not your life. Maybe you're like, I have this other life here that is important to me, and you're not willing to give that up because maybe they did,
Yeah. I got to do a like an in-person thing at CrossFit New England one time, and we were going to lunch, and the guy that was driving me there, just basically got to see Katrin David's daughter life, like inside and out. And he's like, I wouldn't want that life. He's like, she eats, sleeps. This is all that she does. She can't have a boyfriend. She can't have a social life. This is 100% her life. And he's like, she does amazing things, but I don't think I could ever do that myself. It was interesting to hear. Because she makes it look easy, all those people do.
Yeah. People at upper levels of stuff, like balance is BS to them.
No, that's not a thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've made some huge sacrifices. And like I said, they're working hard.
They're working hard.
Also, there's no balance.
Yeah.
There's no balance. Yeah.
So we have to decide if that's what we want for our life when we look at those people, and like when we, beat ourselves up because we're not at that level. You don't want their life. You may think you want their result, but you don't want their life.
We've personally gone through this a little bit moving here from like when we were living in Idaho. We had no balance because we didn't know anybody there, and we were 100% business. And now that we've moved back closer to family, it's like we have family and friends coming in town, and so we have to start to find that balance of like, how do we work and do these other things, because it wasn't even an option before. It was like COVID and we knew no one, so it was like we could dedicate 100% of our time to work. And now that we're here, we're like, there has to be a balance, because we want balance in our life. We don't want to be 100% work.
Yeah, we set up our life during that time to where it was just 100% work,
and then
and
when
that
we
was
got
okay.
back here, we were like, oh gosh, we have to be able to fit people into our life.
One
again.
thing changes and we can't maintain it.
Right. Yeah, it was true. It was like, it wasn't maintainable at first. We're learning it.
Yeah. Let's we brought up social media. Let's talk about the pressures that we feel personally to be on social media in general, and to like perform and perform's the wrong word, I guess. Just the pressure to put stuff out there and to remain relevant, because we both have online businesses.
Yeah.
So it seems kind of imperative that we be online.
Yeah.
And it brings this pressure with it that we feel. And I don't know if it's always healthy. It's something Blakely and I talk about all the time, because I'm the one who's always like, we got to post something today. And then if I ask myself, I'm like, why? Why do I have to post something today?
Yeah.
Do you feel those same pressures?
Yeah, for sure.
Blakely's like, I'd rather not post something and put a whole lot of thought into a super meaningful post than just post something.
I just thought of this as you were saying that. Like when I owned the CrossFit gym, it felt like so much pressure. I was not good at my personal social media, so I was worried about that aspect of it. How am I going to do this for the gym? And I really struggled with it in like the first year. And until I found like my groove of like, I started to showcase the clients all the time. Like I didn't want the social media part to be anything about me. And then like once I started to just like record what they did all day, that be the story, and like just totally like changed the focus. I had so much fun with it. So I feel like that was like the key to me for changing. Like I really enjoyed it after that. Like I loved posting because it was posting about them, posting about their victories, and then they got to share it, and it just felt like a very enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
So I think that was the key for me for that piece, at least.
Okay, so let me put you on the spot
Oh,
after you
gosh.
said that, because anybody who follows us on Instagram sees 99% me
Yeah.
in our Instagram story. Why is that?
Because I personally don't like to be in the videos,
You camera shy?
but that's where.
But there's something deeper behind that. It's we all deal with this thing, and that's
Like
probably rooted in self-doubt. Like, why would anybody care
Yeah.
what I'm doing?
That's true. I think, there is a pressure as a coach. I felt it at the gym. Like, if they saw me work out, would they compare themselves to me? And I should be able. I mean, as a coach, I shouldn't. It's not necessary that you are better than your athletes. You're coaching them, so you should make them better than you. But there was always a pressure. Like, if they see me lift this, will they be like, "Oh, Blakely can only lift that much"? You know, I think that was probably what had a lot to do with.
Mm-hmm.
And even still,
And like there's a vulnerability to it
Yeah.
also.
like,
You're like letting people into your personal life
yeah, for sure.
if you choose to.
Yeah.
One thing you said you guys do, I really liked that, is that you guys will post like, oh, here's me like failing a lift or whatever. And like just this, and then, your people you help coach, they were like, oh, I never thought that you guys ever mess up. Like, I forget that sometimes, like, like people see, people like us, coaches or people in the fitness industry as like, we're like some perfect individuals. We're not.
No.
I mean, totally not. Like,
Yeah.
we all have our, our own stuff. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we have our own struggles.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's convicting that we should post more of that kind of stuff, so that
Especially plateaus and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
and just saying like, hey, like, yeah, stuck in, or I haven't been really making progress with what I've been doing. And it's like sharing maybe, what comes to mind with, how to get out that, what you think, how to get out of it, So
Yeah.
like people can gather, take some things away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I think the people that follow you, they know you. Like, if you post something of yourself, like doing something bad, that's not what they're going to judge you on. They follow you. They know they know you, like they know your whole story.
What do you mean with that when you say post something
It
bad?
made me think about like when we were doing double unders the other day, and like my first 2 sets, like double unders are like my thing. Like,
That's
and
your
like,
jam.
in my first 2 sets, I was messing up. My shoelaces were untied. I couldn't get together. And Jonathan's just like cruising. And then, so I'm like, let's post the 3rd set, because that's when I got it together. But really, I mean, there was two sets I was like struggle busting. So those should be the sets that were like out there, like, I'm messing up. My shoe's untied. I'm struggling. I can't get it together. I shouldn't be proud of the one that I did well. I should be fine with the ones that I didn't do well with.
And that's rooted in that.
That like, oh, they're going to think I'm bad at doubles if I post this. Yeah, it's rooted in that, like,
Yeah.
someone's going to think this about you.
Yeah. Or like if we're, filming some video content for a workout or something, and like, I don't like the way I look in it. Like, man, I look fat today.
It's an unflattering angle.
I just won't post it, but that's not the right thing to do. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
we need to be as honest with ourselves as we expect our clients to be with us. Maybe.
And they're being very vulnerable with us. They're sharing a video with us every day.
Yeah.
And they're trusting us to, like, look at the video. It doesn't matter what this, what it looks like. We're not judging them on what they look like. We're just trying to help them.
Yeah. This,
And I think just like going back to like just comparison, it's like, again, like if you're going to compare, I think comparing, you got to look at people, different stages of their journey. Like we were talking about this earlier. It's like, hey, like you're looking at somebody who is, 5 years or whatever, like into the game. You can't really look at them like from, right now, like comparing you to them,
Yeah.
like that's not where you should be looking at. And then also too, again, it's like everybody is gonna struggle. So I think a lot of people, when they get on social media and they start comparing themselves, they're not recognizing like, hey, like everybody also struggles just like I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
we try to post a lot of videos of our clients doing workouts just to inspire potential
Yeah.
people to kick butt too. And I have had people message me saying like, man, I wish I could make as much progress as them, or I was lifting as much as them. And it's an opportunity to have that conversation with them. Like, hey, they've been training consistently for 2 years. That's the reason they're at this place.
Yeah.
But also just like, just celebrating your own progress. Like, you know, like I think not people don't do that enough. You know, they're just looking at what everybody else is doing, and they're not really looking at like, hey, like, yeah, like I've come a long way too. You know, I may not be where this person is, but I've come a long way.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's, you know, comparison is the thief of joy. But I mean, just reminding yourself that's like, hey, like, look at also all your success. That's why I do the same thing with my clients. Like every week I'm like, hey, what are some things that you're proud of that you did?
Yeah.
You know? And I think just self-reminding like, hey, I'm doing things, I'm making progress. Like I may not be making progress every week in the way that I want to, but there are little wins here, and those are things that are going to add up over time. And if we keep on doing that over time, like we're gonna look back and it's like, oh crap, like I totally different person now. You know, like.
And I think sometimes people forget that progress can even be like, oh, I know how to read a nutrition label now.
Yeah.
That's friggin' amazing
No,
progress. I understand that, you know, chicken is a protein and beans are a carb. I understand that now. That's progress. That's education.
Yeah.
You know, that most people don't know.
Yeah.
So it's looking for ways to measure progress other than the obvious things.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's just like, I think you have to be in it. Like once you're in it for a while, like you gotta start, you'll start looking for those things, because again, you're not going to see the constant change that you're originally, you know, trying to see all the time. Like you have to have, like I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and so we have belts, right? And, I remember when I first started, I was like obsessed about getting my blue belt, which is like the belt above white.
Okay.
And so I worked really, really hard and like trained a lot. And yeah, I mean, I would talk to like higher belts, and they were like, if you keep thinking about just getting belts, you're going to quit because it may be several years before you get a belt and, you know, another promotion. So there's got to be something that like keeps you going through. And so maybe it's like, hey, like I survived against this higher belt for longer, or I did this. It's like, you got to look at the individual little small wins. And then also somebody told me really that stuck with me. It's like when he said, because I asked him, I was like, well, how do you stay like motivated? He's like, when I stopped caring about like getting belts or winning or anything like that, that's when everything started to get more fun. That's when I started to get better at jiu-jitsu, when I just stopped caring about like these particular outcomes and just did it because it was fun to do. That's it.
Yeah.
Like falling in love with the process, not
exactly.
the goal. So how long did it take you to get the blue belt?
Like a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really long time to have to stay like,
Takes
to have a
commitment.
goal.
Right.
That's a long time to stay focused on a goal.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that particular discipline of martial arts, like it can take decades to get a black belt, which is like the highest belt.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, and you may not see quote progress for a while.
Yeah.
Like I know people who have been, you know, at a particular belt for years, and they, you know, get promoted. So it's just like later, like after years. And so you have to have these things that are just keeping you going, because it's not about the outcome.
Yeah.
That's not gonna motivate you. Yeah.
Is it like, this is a side note, is it like karate where you get like the belt color and then you get like the little stripe? Like I'm halfway between.
Sometimes some schools give stripes.
Okay.
My current school doesn't give stripes.
Okay.
And I'm like, I need to look a little carrot, but I'm also, again, I have to get out of that mindset. It's like, look, this is not what should be motivating you. It should be more about like, hey, I'm learning here. I am recognizing like where I'm making improvements, even if they're little tiny small ones, and they may only come like once, you know, every few months. But it's like when it comes, it's like, yes, like I know I'm getting better.
Yeah.
And recognizing that, you know.
Yeah. It makes me think of people wanting to get pull-ups. That's one of those things that like it might take you several years to get a pull-up if you're starting, from ground zero.
Yeah.
And it's just like finding those, and it's hard. Like you're like, okay, how am I ever gonna pull up? People feel like, how am I ever gonna pull up? But then just like not focusing on the pull up, but focusing on what you can do like each month. Like, okay, for these 3 months, I'm going to work on, this band and I'm going to get 10 reps, and then like finding the next goal that's more reachable.
Yeah.
And just showing up.
Yeah.
Like you have to show up. Like
Yeah.
every day. You can't just sit here and just be like, well, I'm not seeing progress, so I'm
Right.
just going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't do that.
Yes.
If you want it, you have to
gotta
show
try
up.
it. Yeah.
Like I don't care if you walk away and like you didn't get anything from that day. Like it doesn't matter.
Right.
It literally doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You actually did get something. You
Yes.
just didn't get what you
just
thought
don't
you
know
were
it.
gonna
You just
get.
don't know it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing that like some people have a goal. Like I want to see my abs. I want a pull up, all those things. But it like you said, it takes every day to show up. If you want pull ups, you got to start doing some pull ups every day.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, I want pull ups and I try once a month to get a pull up. It's not going to happen. If you want to see your abs, you got to focus on your nutrition hard.
Possibly the theme that runs through all this stuff and that makes exercise and nutrition so hard is that it is all such a long-term play. It's like putting a penny in the bank every day.
Every day.
And you just got to watch that
like,
penny.
"Ugh, now I
make
have
sure you
3
keep making
pennies."
your deposits, and then someday you look back and you actually have money in there.
Exactly.
And you got some of the effects
Every
of
time we talk
compounding
about
interest.
Exactly.
we always bring this back to finances because it's the same.
There's so many
It's the same.
parallels.
Yeah, there is. It really is.
And I think on the nutrition side, it's this giant trap, and it ruins our expectations because there's so many quote diets that you can do that will give you that quick hit of results. And then like you were saying earlier, like you no longer can maintain whatever behavior you were doing to get that quick result, whether it's drinking that juice or that detox tea or not eating any carbs or anything like that. And when you stop doing it, you lose the result.
Exactly.
And you blame yourself instead of the unsustainable method that you chose to use. And you get into this cycle. I'm a bad person because I lost my result. No, you chose an unsustainable method.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Just like we were talking about the thing where it takes a long time. Like we made a joke, that thing about the Pop-Tart. It'd be easier if like the 10th Pop-Tart killed you versus like you can eat like 1,000 Pop-Tarts and then, you've done some damage. But like the same thing of like the opposite, like it just takes a long time to make progress, just as long as it takes to lose progress.
I heard a bodybuilder say one time that anytime somebody comes up, because he had huge shoulders, man, what do you do for your shoulders? He's like, well, I train my shoulders 3 times a week for 7 years.
For 7 years.
That's how I got these shoulders.
Get started.
Like, that's not the answer I wanted to hear. I wanted
Yeah.
3 quick tips to bigger shoulders.
Doesn't work like that.
But that's the thing, man, is helping people stick with it long enough in a sustainable way that they get the result and they learn to enjoy the process along the way.
Yeah.
That's the secret sauce.
And it's hard. It's hard
It
to do
is.
it because, like you said, there's so many, things out there that are, dangling those quick things that, you just get that little bump. But, and even if you do those things, even if you just do one of those things, I think what the key is too is learning what actually worked for you and then what didn't work for you in that thing, because that's one of my favorite questions to ask people is like, because I'll hear, hey, I did this diet, and I'm like, okay, I know you're not doing it right now and it did not work out for you long term, but there were probably some aspects of that particular thing that you did where it was like, oh yeah, like this really worked, I can do this. Because then if you it's kind of like, again, like I think about martial arts, right? Just taking what works and then using that and then building your own thing based on all that stuff. Like we just keep what works and we toss the rest of it, right? So yeah, I think too, like if you find yourself like, in that situation where you did some things that were unsustainable, maybe not everything about it was unsustainable. Maybe just, overall it wasn't. So take what actually worked and use that.
Yeah, you making
Yeah.
me think of like somebody maybe who does Whole30, and you ask them like, well, what did you like about it? Or what worked for you? Oh, I really loved how I felt eating all those fruits and vegetables. Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
keep that part.
Yes. Yeah.
But the rest of it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah,
Right.
figure out how we can let you eat a piece of toast
Yeah.
every once in a while. Also, you know what I mean?
And it makes me think of the other topic we were going to talk about is like program jumping. It's like program jumping to those like this 30-day challenge and this 30-day challenge and then this 30-day challenge, or this 30-day
Yeah.
workout program to bigger biceps, and then this, this one to cleaner abs, and like, well, just like what works by combining all those things, and what doesn't work by just jumping around to like that next fad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't even realize that they're doing that. Like,
Jumping around.
I've come to the realization some people don't even realize they're doing fad
Like a program
diets
jumping.
in
Oh,
general, or that they're skipping around too frequently between exercise programs. They just think like the way you make progress is you do this thing for 30 days,
And
then you do this thing
Right.
for
like
30
this
days.
is over
Right,
now, because
right.
when something has an end date, it's like it's over. So
Right.
now what do I do?
Right.
You know,
We were
like-
talking earlier, like, there is no 30-day
30,
There's
yeah.
no 30-day anything.
Right, right.
This
It's-
stuff we're
it's a
talking about
lifestyle.
requires changing your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's a component. I think it's just education. Like we're kind of like privileged in the fact that we know what to do long term. Like most people, I don't think know that. Okay, well they do something for 30 days and then they're like, now what? It's because literally they just legitimately just don't know what they should be doing. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's the tough part. And I think that's where it's like, if you're in that boat where you're just constantly jumping around, to me, that means like you don't have someone to guide you on what is the proper, or what is how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be. Like that's where that is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's where it's like, you need to invest if you're wanting to really make long-term substantial changes. You got to invest in getting some help, getting some guidance. None of us got here where we are without somebody helping us.
Yeah.
Me, you, nobody.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you're absolutely
like,
right.
I think people do think that it's like, oh, they must have just figured it out. Like, no, like not at all.
Yeah.
You should have seen me like 10 years ago, man, like 10, 12 years ago, like what I was doing. Like,
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We hired coaches. We
Yeah.
hired mentors. We
Yeah.
took classes. We did research. We did,
Yeah.
Right.
Like, one of
We
my
tried things that didn't work.
Exactly. One of my first coaches, my first weightlifting coaches, Mike Bledsoe, I saw him posted something on the other day on Facebook. He was like, look, how his Facebook, shows you what you posted, like TBTs
yeah.
or whatever.
It's the best part of it.
Yeah. And then he was like, man, like knowing what I know now, like now I know why I was getting hurt all the time. Like he mentioned that. And it's like, yeah, because, you learn better, but you have people to help you, guide you, and you got to invest that into yourself if that's what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned program jumping, and we were talking about that. I think it's a pretty common thing, like that people have different goals, or they think they have different fitness goals. Like, I want to get stronger. I want to get better at running. I want to get better at golf. I want to do
Yeah.
BJJ, whatever.
Yeah.
They got all these things on their mind that might be counterproductive.
Right.
They might be counterproductive to do at the same time, and it's hard for people to prioritize like how to attack all that.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of different things before. How do you balance like your running, your lifting, your BJJ, all that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough.
Or do you?
I mean, well, it's really challenging because I do a lot of things. Like I lift. I was training for half marathon last year, but last year I did a half marathon, I lifted, and I did jiu-jitsu. So I did all these things, right? I think it's just one of those things where if you want to do all the things, you got to be okay with not being great at any of them. Like I think a lot of people, they want to do all these things, and then they get mad that they're not seeing progress everywhere. First of all, like we talked about progress, but it's like, yeah, like I had to be okay with not being able to lift more weights. Like, and you can't get mad at that if you're also doing, 5 other things.
Right.
Because if you spread yourself out that way, you're not focusing on a particular thing. Like, you can't expect to get the gains that you want. So you have to be okay with, just maybe even being in a plateau. Yeah, you have to be okay with it.
Just maintaining.
Just maintaining. Like for me, that's what it really was. It was like I was focused more so on running, so I was making progress there and spending more time but I had to be okay with like, hey, yeah, like I'm not gonna be able to lift more weights, and my jiu-jitsu is like it's probably not gonna improve, and that is what happened. I had to be okay with it.
So it's really about expectations.
Yeah. So it's about definitely about managing expectations for sure.
And then the other approach is to just focus on one thing and give all your attention to that.
Yeah.
And during that time, periodizing out like, all right, for this summer, I'm going to just get better at running. And I'm going to put all my attention on that.
Which then you also still have to manage expectations, because then you have to say, well, if I'm wanting to focus on running and you're also lifting, then it's like, well, I'm probably not going to see again as much progress lifting than I would if I were to just focus on lifting. Like you get something for nothing, right?
And patience once you're in that, and you've decided what your goals are, just having patience and letting it settle in and start to work. And I think that's where like some people want to bounce around, like, well, I want this and I want this and I want this. Yeah.
And also you got to take care of yourself too. Like you can't be doing all the things and not like, look, if you're going to be doing multiple things, multiple sports or multiple types of training, like you need to make sure you're eating enough food and like taking, like at that point I know people don't sometimes think they're an athlete because they're not like competitive and competing or whatever like that. Or maybe they think that they're not like at a standard of performance, which sounds like an athlete, but like if you're doing all this stuff, like you're an athlete.
Yeah.
You got to treat yourself like one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think mindset wise, like I used to call like my members of the gym, like you're athletes, like you're doing something every day that takes some athletic ability, and like treat yourself like that, like treat your body good like that, like an athlete would, like, and then you start to dial in the nutrition. If you kind of have that mindset, like, oh, I am an athlete.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Talking about balancing recovery, essentially.
Yeah, like I need to get to bed at a certain time. Like I need to think about what I'm eating, because that was one of the pitfalls. Is like people come in and they crush that hour in the gym, and then the rest of there's 23 hours left in the day where it's just like downhill. But if they start to absorb that mindset.
Why am I not making progress?
Yeah.
Well, what are the other 23 hours of the day?
But then once they adopt that mindset, they really start to flow.
Like that's huge, because it's like it starts to become like, all right, well, this is who I am. Like what would this person do in this situation? Like, if I'm an athlete, like what would they do in this situation? This is what they would choose.
Yeah.
That's a great way to think about it.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, and then you become that person.
Become that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Your thoughts, your actions all align with that. Yeah.
I think one of my clients said that one time, like they started thinking like, what would a healthy person do in this situation?
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's what I'll do.
I love that. No, yeah.
You don't have to like think about what to do. Just think about what a healthy person would do.
Which choice would they make?
Yeah. And the more of those decisions you string together, then that's progress.
Boom.
Yep.
Yeah. Boom.
It's not about perfection. It's about what does 80% of your day, what does 80% of your week look like?
Exactly. That's good.
All right. That was, let's wrap it up right there. I feel like we hit on some good stuff. All right, guys. We appreciate you listening. We will check you out on the next episode.
All right.